returned to the coast this week for some more seascape landscape photography, and that's following last week's vlog, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So fingers crossed today I can get some effective images. The weather is really not on my side though. It's grey, it's overcast, it's a bit flat. But in my experience, seascapes can work quite well on these type of days, so I'm hopeful that we can come out with some effective shots here. Now I've come to a beach that I've got no idea what it's called, absolutely no idea, and it's quite hidden away, and I don't think a lot of people really know about it on the Isle of Man. But it's very small. You can see the headland behind me. The beach runs from there down to about here, and then there's kind of a rocky headland, and then the other side there's kind of a beach of a similar sort of size. It's really not very big at all. But what really has stuck in my mind from the last time I visited here is down here there's really beautiful rounded smooth boulders that are kind of peppered across this beach, and I think they could work really effectively with the waves kind of lapping around them with some sort of long exposure shots. So that's what I'm going to try to achieve today. So I'm going to have a little wander around here, see if I can find any compositions, and then I'll explain my setup. Found my first composition, and it's entirely not what I expected to be shooting today at all. You can see behind me I've actually got my long lens on, and what's caught my interest are these stones, these rocks that you can see reaching out into the sea, almost like stepping stones. Now clearly there's some sort of rocky headland here, but because it's peak high tide right at this moment, it's been covered up by the water. You get this really nice effect, I feel, and from this particular vantage spot with a long lens in a portrait sort of composition, it works quite nicely. It gives an almost abstract feel because you can't see the wider context of the scene, but you get this nice effect of the stones kind of speckled in the water, with the water kind of swirling around them, sometimes overlapping them. And if you've got kind of like a relatively kind of long exposure, but not too long, you pick up that movement in the water, but also you get that nice smoothing effect as it kind of overlaps the surfaces of the rock. So settings wise for this, I'm shooting at f13, about a second, ISO 64 at 105mm. But I also have the circular polarizer on the front to take a bit of the glare off the rock and waters. And what that actually really does well in this kind of context is it deepens the contrast between the white that you can see in the surf and the black of the rock. I've now removed my long lens and I've switched to my Tamron 24-70 because it's more appropriate for my next composition, which I have found. Now let me stand up a second and I'll explain that to you. Right, first thing, the background works really nicely. So in the right of the shot I've got this sweeping bay that kind of sweeps round to this beautiful headland in the background here that almost forms like a perfect triangle down into the sea. Works really well for the backdrop, but it's the foreground here that really caught my attention, and it's these rocks here, and as far as I'm concerned they're not just any old rocks, they're the perfect rocks to make this composition work, and that's because of their colour. They're so dark, and it works from a contrast point of view with the surf, the white kind of water that's swirling around them. I think it's going to lend itself very well to potentially a black and white composition here, although I won't know for certain until I take it back to post-processing. But the funny thing about these kind of shots are you can't just take a picture of any old rocks on a beach and expect them to work. You've got to really think about the rocks and how they're positioned in your scene, and down here they work tremendously well, and I think there's one rock that kind of stands out above all the others, and I may not be able to point it out to you. It's that rock just there, that one there. That sits in the bottom left of my scene, and quite a lot of the time it's kind of submerged under the water, but I think the shape of that rock really makes the foreground work. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to time it so I take my image when the water is receding back into the sea, and in my experience you get much better images than taking it when the waves are actually crashing on shore, because you get more of a uniform kind of shape in that water as it's receding. You get those nice lines drawing back into the water, and I think it works tremendously well. Now in terms of settings for this shot, I am shooting at f13, 1 second, ISO 64 at about 28mm, and again I've got the circular polarizer on the front to take the glare off the rocks and water and punch out that contrast. Got to mention on the last shot, I am using a 2-stop hard edge graduated filter in order to bring the sky down a little bit and bring a little bit more of the drama out of this fairly dreary sky. And I found a new composition, the third composition. And it's quite similar to the last one, but it's actually just shooting the other direction. So I've plonked my camera down next to me here, and I'm shooting this way up the shore. And you've got all of these nice rounded boulders that I alluded to at the start of the video, kind of concentrated in this area of the beach. And I think kind of at the moment we're kind of positioned exactly where the tide is meeting the shoreline. So we're kind of looking up and along the shoreline, and then you've got this headland kind of there. And I think it's working quite nicely. I'm pretty much using similar settings to the second composition where I shot the other direction, and again we're getting that nice kind of movement in the water as it kind of comes in and around the boulders of the beach here, but we're using it at a shutter speed that's short enough to still pick up a little bit of detail in that water as well. I think that's very important. I believe if you use exposures that are too long with seascape photography, it can quite often lead to shots that lack a little bit of drama and yeah, a little bit of interest. Sometimes you can polish that sea off that little bit too much. In my last vlog, I moaned about how stressful seascape photography can be, and I totally stand by that because today's been absolutely no different. But the one good thing about seascape photography is if you time it well, you effectively get two shooting windows. You get to shoot your composition when the tide's coming in, and you get to shoot it when the tide's going out. And that's effectively what I've done today. I've kind of arrived here at a good time, and it's allowed me to spend a lot more time with my compositions and really think them through. And having those two windows, those two shooting opportunities, has, I don't know, relieved a little bit of the pressure. The only downside is when you're shooting when the tide's going out, some of those rocks that you were stood on beforehand can turn very treacherous. I'm stood on these rocks here that kind of got like a coating of algae on, and honestly, they feel like they've been oiled up, greased up. It's ridiculous and very, very treacherous. In terms of the shots that I captured today, I'm quietly confident about them, but I'm not 100% certain. I think the conventional landscape shots that I took in either direction looking up the shore, I can see them working quite well because they're well within my comfort zone and they just felt right to me. I'm not entirely certain whether I'm going to apply black and white processing to them. I guess you'll find out, or you'll know by now. I don't know. I'm probably going to experiment with them and see how they look, and just kind of go with my gut feel. The telephoto shot is something well out of my comfort zone. That is not the kind of shot that I would take at all, and I'm still not 100% certain on it at this moment in time, but I think shots like that are sometimes the most valuable ones to take, those ones that take you out of your comfort zone and make you think in a different way about a scene than you usually would do so. They're the ones that ultimately you'll learn the most from. So yeah, even if that shot hasn't actually turned out fantastic, it doesn't matter too much. I intend with future vlogs and future seascape vlogs in particular to do a lot more of those shots, because I really feel that telephotos are underused on seascapes and they can unlock absolutely incredible images. As always, thanks very much for watching today, and if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so, because it gives me a massive ego boost. Drop your comments below as well. Let me know which of the 3 images I took was the strongest and why, and just if you've got any general thoughts on the location itself or seascape photography, any tips or suggestions, feel free. I love the dialogue below in the videos. It's half the reward of doing it. Yeah, and I will see you all back on the Isle of Man, where hopefully the weather improves a little bit, for some more landscape photography. Take care.